Uh, Leah, let me know when it says, but we should be good to go.
Yep, you're good. You're good, Justin. It says it.
Alrighty, Westchester University, thank you for joining us today for another rendition of the Residence Life and Housing Services Speaker Series. Today, we have an awesome speaker for you today. I'm honored. I know that you are all honored as well. We're here to have Merrill Reese. Merrill, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. I'm glad to be visiting with somebody. This is my big activity of the day.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today. I want to give you a little background on Merrill, although I know that he needs no introduction, but he has been the play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Eagles since 1977. Seriously, you cannot listen to Philadelphia Eagles radio or any type of telecast without picturing Merrill's voice or hearing it. The games are aired on CBS stations, 94 WYSP and Sports Radio WIP, as well as other networks that are affiliated with Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware. He has a book, his biography, It's Good, was published in 1988. His highly acclaimed book, Sportscasting, Turning Your Passion into a Profession, was published in 2010. We're going to ask him about that as well. Everyone, welcome Merrill Reese.
Thank you very much, Justin. It's good to be here. And yes. I'm here to talk about anything you like, whether it's my career, whether it's the NFL, whether it's sports, whatever it is you'd like to have me speak about, I'd be happy to do that.
Great. Well, first things first, I want to ask you a question, and I want to know, do you remember us meeting before?
I don't. Should I?
Listen, I don't know if you are aware. That's why I brought it up.
So wait a minute. Were you a friend of my son Nolan's?
I was not a friend of your son Nolan's. I wish I was. But we actually met at the 2016 draft, Merrill. You were up. You were calling, I believe, the second or third pick. Do you see your picture? Do you see it?
I do.
And
okay, yeah, I do.
Yeah, we were there. We were at the link. It was so cool. And I came up and I approached you and I said, hey, you're Merrill Reese. And you were like, yeah, I am. And after you were done calling the number third pick, you actually gave me the card and you signed it. So not only are you a local treasure, but you're a national treasure as well. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for that experience. I greatly enjoyed it.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So how are you doing during COVID-19? How is everything? What have you been doing to keep yourself busy?
It's crazy. It really is. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. And actually, I was asked to tape a message, part of a graduation speech for the Temple University graduation, which they are having online next week, the 7th of May. And my message basically was that all of us, even back in my days at Temple University, experienced trying times. Nobody goes through this world unscathed with challenges. Back when I was in college, I remember going into a class and I was greeted by people telling me this was November 22nd, 1963. They informed me that President Kennedy had just been shot. And I couldn't imagine anything like that. I mean, you knew that there was an assassination centuries ago with Abraham Lincoln, but who would ever think that an American president would be shot
Absolutely.
dead? And we went through the mourning period, and there was no football for a week, and there was an NFL game, and the NFL commissioner at the time, Pete Rozelle, was criticized for carrying on with that game. And that day, I remember that Sunday, I was at Franklin Field to watch the Eagles. And when I came out and put on the radio, I found that the Lee Harvey Oswald, who had assassinated President Kennedy, was then shot by a guy named Jack Ruby. And these are things you couldn't envision in this world. And then when I graduated from college, today, the students coming out of college don't know quite when the world is going to open up and when the job market is going to open up. But I remember when I was about to finish college, there was another obstacle, and that was the Vietnam War. And thousands of young people were being drafted into the military and sent to a faraway place in another area of the world with their life very much in danger. So it was a very, very trying time. There were protests on the campus, sit-ins going on the campus. National Guardsmen were sent to different campuses. There was a shooting with students at Kent State University. So that went on. That was a challenging time. And then you got into the world, and all of a sudden, inexplicably, on April the 4th, 1968, the great civil rights leader Martin Luther King was assassinated, and our world turned upside down again. So we've been through things like this. Look what we went through in 9/11, when we didn't know if it was an isolated attack or whether or not the country was under siege. So this is something that never, if you had told me this, nobody would have imagined something like this occurring. But you thought that it was more the stuff that you saw back in the 50s and the 60s. There were science fiction movies where diseases went out of control, pandemics went out of control. But we never believed that something like this could happen in this country. But the truth is, we are going through it. I like to hope that we are through the worst of it. And I do sincerely believe that we will get through this, and we will get back to a different kind of normal. We will get back to normal, but it may not be quite as physical a normal where people embrace each other all the time and that there's hugging and kissing with casual friends. It may be a little bit different, at least for a while, until this is all shut down. Somebody mentioned to me yesterday, a neighbor, we were out talking from house to house, everything's, at social distances. But he mentioned to me that the whole work environment may change in that companies, big law firms have, for example, have several floors of beautiful high rises in Center City, Philadelphia, for which they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in rent. And they're liable to say, you know what? We had our people working out of their homes online, and we're accomplishing the same things we were able to do with all of this rent. Now, they may still have their offices there, their headquarters there, but they may have, for example, 2 or 3 conference rooms that their various attorneys can come into to do client conferences and then go back to working every day out of their homes. So who knows? The world will definitely change during all of this, but I do believe we will get back to a point where we will once again have thousands of people in stadiums and a lot of the good things that we have prior to this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. And I mean, I think we found out what meetings could have been emails and what meetings actually needed to take place. So those were all good things as well. So the draft just happened last week. Give us some thoughts on the draft. Like, how did you feel? Were you like, yes? What would you grade the Eagles? Give us some feedback.
Well, I'm not one to grade the drafts. I mean, I'm not one to grade anything. I had enough problems when they were grading my compositions and my term papers back in my college days. So I don't like to grade drafts. And aside from that, wise people, wise football coaches and personnel people taught me many, many years ago. And this is going to be my 44th year broadcasting the Eagles. I like to tell people I started when I was 14, but that would be a lie. But it'll be my 44th season broadcasting the Eagles. And I like to tell people that I learned very early that the only way to really evaluate a draft is look back 2 years later. You can look back 2 years later and you can evaluate a draft. The day after a draft, you see all these so-called draft experts. I gave this team an A+. Oh, the Eagles were a B-. Who really knows? I can tell you that the Eagles first pick Jalen Reagor is a wide receiver that I like very much. I knew his dad when he was here briefly with the Eagles, Monte Reagor. He was a defensive lineman. But Jalen Reagor, to me, is a very exciting player. When they got to the Eagles pick, it was going to either be Jalen Reagor or Justin Jefferson. And I thought that Jefferson is a more traditional pick. But I think you can do more things with Jalen Reagor. He's great on a quick screen. When he
Fast.
gets the ball in the open, he turns into a running back. He reminds me in his movement of Brian Westbrook, one of the great Eagles running backs, with the quick stop and starts, and he's a really good football player. So I'm not disappointed in that pick at all. I can't wait to see him. I had a what did they do moment when I saw them pick the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, in the second round. That took me by surprise. That's the best word I can use, surprise, because I know they have the reasons for doing that. They say it had nothing to do with Carson Wentz, with whom they have great confidence. But they did take a quarterback when I thought they might have been well served taking another wide receiver like Denzel Mims out of Baylor, or a defensive back like Trevor Diggs, or some of the other areas. But they did it, and they have their reasons for doing it. Along the way, they did pick up a safety, and that's Kayvon Wallace.
Yeah, he looks great.
And I think he's a plug-in player. I think he's a very, very good, solid player, very intense, played in a conference where where he faces the best running backs and the best tight ends and the best wide receivers. I like that pick a lot. And my friend and my broadcast partner, Mike Quick, had the wide receiver, John Hightower, out of Boise State, highly rated. And he said he's very fast and he thinks he can contribute. And the late picks, of course, are you hope they got something there. There's a kid out of Temple, Sean Bradley, the linebacker. He's an effort guy. He's a good player. How much he'll be able to contribute and how soon remains to be seen. So I would tell you that there were things about the draft I liked very much. I can't tell you that I was disappointed. On the other hand, I never go dancing out of the building after a draft unless it's the second pick in the draft and they pick a Carson Wentz, who I knew was going to be a great quarterback. I have watched all of his tape from North Dakota State. So I knew he was a great one. But rarely do I ever go dancing out of a building after a draft. It's all wait and see.
Okay.
So we've got tons of questions popping in. So we're going to start calling on people. So Sam Livorno, if you want to unmute and you can go ahead and ask your question. He looks excited.
Merrill, Reese, I'm telling you, you are the heart and soul of the Eagles organization. I have cherished you and your voice my family has for as long as I can remember. So
thank you.
With that, I will say, my question is, every time I go to an Eagles game, your voice, it comes on the loudspeaker of fans doing bad things. And I would love to know, out of you, all the time that you have, the entire time that you've been with the Eagles organization, what is the most craziest thing that you have heard or seen a fan do at an Eagles game? Wow.
That is a good question. You know, I'm so focused on the field that there are things that go. Oh, I will tell you something that happened, and it happened back in the 80s, and it was the craziest thing I ever heard. It was a game being played in the 80s, and I all of a sudden heard this tremendous roar going on from a section at Veterans Stadium, you know, the upper deck. It was called the 700 level. And there was something going on at the 700 level, and I put the binoculars on there, and I didn't know exactly what was going on, but there was a fight breaking out between two women. And I found out that it was one of the Eagles players' wives going after her husband's girlfriend. That was the wildest thing I ever saw.
That is pretty wild.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So next we have Allison. She's got like a little fun story, and then she's got a question for you. So go ahead, Allison.
Sure. Hi, Allison.
Hi, huge fan. The Donahue household loves you so much. My mom actually mutes the announcers when we watch games, and she puts you on the radio and makes them listens because she just thinks you are the greatest. My whole family does. We're huge fans. And my question for you is, What is your favorite memory of the Eagles besides winning the Super Bowl?
Easy, absolutely easy. It occurred on December 19th, 2010. Eagles at Giant Stadium. Eagles were so bad in that game, and at halftime, I thought they were trailing something like 24-3 or 24-10. It was absolutely awful. And I said on the air, the score is we go to halftime, the Giants 24, the Eagles are still at their hotel. That's how bad it was. And they came back in the second half, and Michael Vick was the quarterback, and Michael Vick hit Brent Selleck over the middle for a 64-yard touchdown. And it was amazing. You could see there was a little bit of a spark there. And then David Akers went with an onside kick, recovered by Riley Cooper. And they marched down again. And they scored on a pass to Jeremy Maclin. And they came down again, and they kept stopping the Giants. And it was Vick running here and throwing here. And finally got down to, I think, the 11-yard line, and he scored on a quarterback draw, not up the middle, but just slashing off to the left side. And suddenly they're within one touchdown. And the crowd was getting less and less raucous. And then they come down again, and Vick hits Jeremy Maclin inside the left pylon, and they get the extra point, and Giant Stadium was quiet. And they had to stop the Giants one more time, which they did. And the Giants punter, Matt Dodge, went back. And my partner in the booth, Mike Quick, said to me, there is no way that he is going to punt to Deshaun Jackson. But he did. And Deshaun looked up, and he muffed the punt. And then he scooped it up. And it looked like there was the Red Sea parting. And then Jason Avant blocked somebody downfield. And Deshaun starts dancing around at the 1-yard line, and I'm yelling, get into the end zone. I don't care if you dance, whatever, get in. And then he slithered into the end zone, and there were no seconds on the clock. And it was the greatest comeback I had ever seen, the most exciting game I have ever seen. And that half of football played by Michael Vick was one of the best quarterbacking performances I've ever seen in my life. So that was my favorite.
I would agree.
That was just on TV.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And I watched it.
Merrill, your intensity during the games, it makes us feel like we're actually in the game with you. I mean, I remember that I have this picture that hangs up with Deshaun from that game. And Mike Tomlin, the coach for the Giants at the time.
Tom
Coughlin just throwing his clipboard down. He was really upset. I mean, that game was not supposed to happen that way for them.
He was ready to kill Matt Dodge, the punter.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a couple questions come through about the draft, which you already answered. So I'm going to skip ahead to a couple. So Aria, I think, had the next question. So if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead and ask.
Hi, my name is Aria.
Hi.
Been a lifelong Eagles fan, and just like hearing your voice brings just like such a feeling of reminiscence and made me realize how much I'm missing Philly sports right now. But I wanted to ask, do you think that with the draft of Jalen Hurts, do you think we're going to use him more like a utility player like Taysom Hill in New Orleans, or if he's just going to stay strictly a backup quarterback?
I don't know. I don't think he's anything near Taysom Hill. I think they're totally different players. I think that Taysom Hill really is a slash. He's a big, tough athlete. I don't think he's in their plans to be their quarterback in the future. The Saints have made some moves in that regard. They just signed Jameis Winston, and I think they're going to develop him behind Drew Brees. So I think that Hurts is more of a traditional quarterback. I mean, he can throw, he can run, but he's really not a slash. Now, will they put a play in there to use him? They may. And one of the reasons I was surprised by drafting the backup quarterback is that this is not going to be a year like any other. And if this were last year, they would bring in all of the rookies this week, and they get down to business, and they'd have workouts this weekend, and then they'd have OTAs, they'd have workouts in June, and they'd come back in July, late July, pretty much mentally prepared, knowing the playbook. But in this case, he's not really going to have any quarterbacking experience in the Eagles system other than the virtual stuff, but it's not the same until he comes back figuratively in sometime late July or August. And I think that's an awful short period of time to prepare anybody, let alone a quarterback. So it wouldn't surprise me if most of his time this year is sitting, not even dressing for games. And I still think that the number 2 quarterback this season is going to be Nate Sudfeld, who has been part of that offense and knows the playbook left, right, north, south for a year. So I don't know. They may have plans, but it's difficult to envision a rookie quarterback playing a major part in the Eagles' game plan this year.
I love that. I just wanted to comment that I am loving all this family love and everybody's sporting their Eagles stuff and got the Eagles backgrounds. Like everybody is so excited right now. I saw Sam's like sister or sibling, somebody came up, like they're looking so excited to see you, Merrill. So
well, my bookcase is behind me and you can see on it a bunch of Eagles signed, Eagles game balls, which I've gotten over the years. And there's a helmet up there and a million different football books, the Eagles Encyclopedia, and books on the Super Bowl and all of that stuff. So
awesome.
I'm not a collector. I'm not an autograph collector, but I do have a few prized items.
I love it. So I think next we have Brendan Soleo. I hope I'm saying your last name correctly, but go ahead and ask Merrill your question.
Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. Well, first I wanted to say thank you. You've left such an impact on my life as you have for many other Eagles fans. And I guess I wanted to see if you, considering your experience coming out of school around the Vietnam War, any advice that you have for students entering the workforce during a difficult time?
I'm going to give you the same advice that I gave my son, Nolan. Nolan is a visual effects editor in Hollywood. He was the visual effects editor of Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America. The last film that he just did was Bad Boys 3. So the problem for Nolan right now is that as a visual effects editor or any kind of an editor, that's called post-production. Right. But you can't do any post-production when there's no production. I mean, all of Hollywood, like all the other parts of the world, is shut down right now. So Nolan is in the same position that you are. But the advice I had for him was to be resilient. That's the most important word, resilient. You are going to have a lot of doors shut in your face. Whether it was during this period of time, I had them shut in my face. Now, when I was at Temple University, by the time I was a sophomore, I was named sports director of WRTI, which was the student station. And I did hundreds of Big Five basketball games. I did football games. I did baseball games. I did everything. And then, of course, after college, there was the military that was required. And I was very fortunate in that I took competitive examinations and I was selected into a naval officers program. And I became a public affairs officer, serving my time at the Pentagon, at the Naval Academy, at Sinclair Fleet, which is in Norfolk, Virginia, and I had a very positive experience in the Navy. But when I came out, I figured, well, let's see. I've got all this experience. I've been a naval officer. It's just going to be a matter of whether I go to ABC, NBC, or CBS. But there was nothing. And then I went to all the local stations and they barely let me in the door. And it's about a year and I'm still banging on doors and living at home. And people are saying to my mother, Helen, do you think your son is ever going to work? And I just kept at it. Finally, I went for an audition in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Somebody told me that this little radio station, WPAZ, was looking for somebody to do a high school game on a Saturday afternoon, high school football. And I met the station owner. His name was Herb Scott. And he interviewed me and he said, I give you a chance to do the game, but you look like you're about to have a nervous breakdown. He said, you just don't look like you're going to be able to do any kind of a job. And I said, you're probably right. I had been out a year. I had no confidence. I went home. Friday afternoon, the phone rang, and it was this station owner, and he said, I can find absolutely nobody to do this game tomorrow. He said, it's a choice between you and dead air. So with that ringing endorsement, I went up to Pottstown, and I went on, and I was shaky, but by the third quarter, it came back to me. And by the fourth quarter, I was sounding pretty decent. And on Monday morning, he called me and he said, I want to talk to you. I drove up to Pottstown, and he sat me down and he said, listen, I'm going to offer you a full-time job, except that your name is going to be Alan Reese. I said, my name is Merrill. He said, my son likes to hear his name on the air. My son, Alan. So you're going to be Alan Reese. So I started the next day in Pottstown, and I did the disc jockey show, and I did the news, and I did the sports. I did everything there. For the first 6 months, I worked 7 days a week. I had no day off. And it was a daytime station. It went off at dark. So I was there 7 days a week from 6 a.m. until 7 at night, and did everything. I did a little league game. Every night I would drive to the little league park and little league baseball. And I had the broadcast equipment that I took with me. And there was a broadcast line, and I would plug into the outlet at the little league park. And the secretary would come in from the front office, and I would knock on the microphone 3 times, and she would lift the needle off of the record, and I would come on with the game. So I got there one night, and it was drizzling, and the drizzle turned into a driving rain, and there was no game. There was nobody there. And now we didn't have cell phones then. We had no cell phones. The only way to communicate was to drive to a phone booth. I know none of you know what phone booths are, but there were phone booths. And I put my dime in, and I called the station, and I said to the sales manager, I said, there's no game tonight. I said, it's been rained out. And he said to me, that game is sold. If you want a job tomorrow, there better be a game tonight. And I went back to the Little League Stadium, and I sat there by myself, and I made up a game, a 7-inning game. Everybody went 1, 2, 3 out, and I had the last guy hit a home run, and I packed up the equipment and went home. So that was how I survived there. But you find ways to survive. But I had so many doors shut in my face. And you know what? My son went out to Hollywood when first of all, he graduated from Boston University. He came home, he got in his car, and he and a friend drove out to California. First he took the obligatory 10-day beer drinking tour of Europe. And then he came back, and then he got into his car and drove out to Hollywood. And he didn't get a job very, very easily, but finally he was a post-production assistant on a television show called Summerland. And he did that, and then he got a job as some sort of a coordinator on a movie called Superman Returns. And then he finally, after a couple of years, he had enough days. So you have to have 100 non-union days to qualify for the Editors Guild, to become a guild editor. And so he qualified, and then he got a job on a Tom Cruise movie called Valkyrie. And he would be calling me, Dad, I was at Tom Cruise's house tonight working on the editing. He said it was really neat. So he did that. And after that, he couldn't get a job. There was nothing open. And a week went by, and 2 weeks went by, and a month went by. And finally, he had a chance at a job, and he went in, and the guy who had left decided to come back, and he didn't get that job. Well, Mike Quick and I were in Carolina for the opening game of the season, and we're walking to the restaurant with the marketing people, And Nolan called me on the phone and he said, Dad, you might as well realize your son is a failure. I can't get a job. I said, Nolan, you have to just hang in there. And Mike Quick got on the phone with him. He said, Nolan, be tough, something will happen. So the following week, he got an offer to go to a film that was being made, but as a production assistant. Production assistant is a non-union job. You know what mostly you do? You pick up lunch, you get coffee, you run errands. And he said, Dad, do you think I should take this? I said, Nolan, it is better than sitting in your apartment every day. I said, go take it. So after about a week, he called me back and he said, Dad, I can't do this. It's demeaning. All I do is run errands. He said, I'm a member of the guild. He said, here I'm doing a non-union job. I said, Nolan, just hang in there. Where the following week, they realized that the film was way behind and it was scheduled to come out in December and it was over a month behind. So they had to add an assistant editor to be there all night from midnight till 8 in the morning to edit. And who did they hire? They hired Nolan because he was the only one of the production assistants who was a member of the Editors Guild. And he did that. He worked for the every day, 7 days a week, midnight till 8, and he helped get that film done. And as a matter of fact, the director at their wrap-up party said to everybody, without Nolan Reese, we never would have had this film out on time. And the name of that film, it set records for the box office. It was Avatar. And the director was James Cameron. And from that point on, Nolan has never been without a job. So it's being resilient. It's being tough. And yes, you're going into a tough world right now, but believe me, it's always been tough. And this world is going to change sooner than we think. At some point, it's going to get back to normal, and there's going to be a big job market, not a small job market, because people are going to be trying to get back into economic prosperity.
That's awesome. That's great. Leah, I don't know if you see the thing from Tom Elmer. He has like a big bulleted thing. Tom, go ahead and jump on here really quickly.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, what's happening? Merrill, I love you, brother. You are Philly sports. Anyway, my daughter works as a director of post-production at A24 Film Studio, based in New York City. She is living in Ambler right now with her mom and working remotely from there. She's hired people and she can help your son Nolan out on this side of the coast. So my email address is in this box. Reach out to me and I will connect your son with her and we'll get him a job. I got to take care of my man, Merrill.
Merrill, I'll email it to you. That way you have it.
Can you email it to me?
I will email it to you. I'm doing it right now.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
And to speak to what you just said, I teach seniors, capstone level marketing class. One of them's on this thing. And we're talking about this exact thing, Merrill. I share my story, how when I graduated, it was a recession. It was 2 years before I got a job. And how did I get it? The pastor of the church reached out to one of the church moms who was the secretary of the founder and the president of this remanufacturing business that was growing. I got a job from that connection, was there 20 years. It propelled my career. It helped me teach modern marketing. So it does work. What you've advised these people works.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it will. I know it will. I know it does, but it's tough. It's tough. But you know what? Nolan went out there, and I would say 55 film majors went out there too to California from Boston University who graduated. There are about 2 of them left. That's the percentage. I graduated from Temple University with about, I would say, probably 50 communications majors. It was a new major then, and I would say 1 or 2 of us are still in the field today. That's how this is not a field to go into for the faint-hearted, for those who give up. It's a pie in the sky type of thing. But I've always said that everything I ever went through, and there were some tough times, even during the even during the good days at WIP, there were some tough things. It's where I wouldn't get too close to a window because somebody would push me out wanting to take that job. And I went through some horrible program directors, and it's a fight. Now the last 20 years have been great, but it's a constant battle. But if you're tough and you want this, I wanted this. I mean, I've wanted to be a play-by-play broadcaster since I was 10 years old and came to the sudden realization that I was never going to be an NFL quarterback. That at 5'8" and 140 pounds, it was never going to happen. So, I mean, that was my dream. I'm going to be an NFL quarterback. I'm going to be a quarterback. And I played a little football. I played some ball, and I played all sports. I played a lot of tennis tournaments growing up when I was doing my job in Potts. In fact, at one point during my career, I went to WWDB, and I did the news from noon until 8 every night. I lived in an apartment house, and I got up in the morning during the spring and summer. I got up at 7, and I gave tennis lessons for $7 a half hour. I was a tennis pro from 7:30 until 11:30, and then drove to the station and did the news all afternoon. So you do anything you can to make it work. And eventually it worked. And then I got a call from the sports information director at Temple. Oh, first of all, I went to the program director at WWDB, which was a music station, a jazz station. And I said, I have an idea. How about if I come in the morning and I do the sports from 6 o'clock to 5 minutes of sports at 6, 7, 8, and 9. And he said, I'm sorry, this is not a sports station. I said, you don't understand. I will come in and do the sports at 6:05, 7:05, 8:05, and 9:05 for free. You don't have to pay me another dollar. And he said, he said, sports might work in the morning. So for months, I would come in and I do the sport. I get up at 4. I'd come in, I'd do the sports from 6 to 9. I'd run back. I'd give 3 tennis lessons. I'd come back and do the news in the afternoon. So now I get a call from the sports information director at Temple, who was had befriended me when I was in school. And he said to me, listen, he said, WIP is looking for somebody to do summer replacement sports for Charlie Swift. Charlie Swift was the sports director of WIP and the play-by-play voice of the Eagles. So he set up an audition for me, and I went in an audition in February. And I was one of 92 people to audition. WIP was the most successful station, had the highest profit margin of any station in America. And I went in, and it wasn't a sports station, it was a music station primarily. And I went in and auditioned at WIP in February. And then I didn't hear anything. And I didn't think I would with all those people auditioning. So I went back and I continued doing the morning sports at WWDB and the afternoon news. And then all of a sudden I get a call in April from WIP. And then they said, we'd like you to come in and do another audition. So I came in and I did another audition, basically the same as the first audition, write some copy, read the sports. And I left and didn't hear anything more. And then I figured, well, I certainly didn't get it. And the first week in June, I got another call from WIP and they said, we'd like to see you. So I went in and I was sitting in the lobby, and all of a sudden, Charlie Swift, their sports director, came out and he said to me, kid, come with me. And I walked down the hall and he said, next Monday when I'm gone, you're going to do the sports from this room. Here's the studio you're going to work at. And I said, what? He said, oh, they didn't tell you? You got the job. So I had a month on WIP, 1 month. And I went back to WWDB and I was prepared to give notice that I was leaving to go to that 1 month at WIP. I was giving up my full-time job just to be on WIP for 1 month. So when I told them that, they said, well, that's okay. you can come in, do this. You can go away from doing your morning sports here, go do your sports at WIP, and come back and do your news in the afternoon here at WWDB. You don't have to leave. So I said, boy, that's great. So two things happened. Number one, the first day I went into WIP, I was scared to death. I mean, this is a big radio station, big station. And they had a morning disc jockey by the name of Ken Garland. He was the biggest star in the city. Tom, I see you nodding your head. You can remember who he was. He had the highest ratings of anybody. Ken Garland, he was a star. And he made a fortune. Anything he said went. So I knew that when I came in to do the sports, he's nowhere near me. Thank God I don't have to look at him, because I grew up listening to him. He's a big star to me, and he's going to be sitting in another room down the hall listening to me. So I'm scared to death. And 6:05, 6 o'clock, they do the news. And 6:05, I come on to do 5 minutes of sports. And I do the sports with everything I have. And at 6:05, I go, it's 6:05 on WIP, time for the start of the Ken Garland Show. And I turn off my mic and I hear nothing. And I think, oh my God, I made a mistake. I turned off the station. I hit a wrong button. But it was 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. And all of a sudden, I hear the click of his microphone, and he comes on and he says, wow, if I were Charlie Swift, I would hurry back from vacation. And before I left that building, they hired me to do the Eagles pre and post game show and the coaches show. And my life changed. My life changed. So that was the biggest break. But for that month, I would wake up every morning at 3:30. I would hurry down to WIP and I would be there by 4:30. And I would plan the sports for 6. And I did the sports 6:05, 7:05, 8:05, at 9:05. Then I would go into my office and tape interviews for the next morning. At 11 o'clock, I would leave and go to WWDB, where I did the news from noon to 8. So my day began at 3:30 and ended when I finally got home at 9 o'clock at night and slept for another 5 hours and went back to work for 1 month. By the end of the month, I was like ready to fall apart. I was so tired. But the rest is history.
Thank you so much. We're gonna hop. I think we might only have time for one, maybe 2 more questions. So,
Okay.
So I think we had Jack Marinello next. So go ahead and ask your question, Jack.
Hi, Merrill. I just want to say thank you for being here. I'm a huge fan. My whole family loves hearing you on the radio. It's a true honor talking to you.
Thanks.
But my question is, obviously, as a broadcaster, calling a championship is your dream. So after decades of not calling one and finally getting to call one in Super Bowl 52, in your call, you said, like, Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. But, like, what did that mean to you? Like, can you put that in the words of, like, how much it meant after all the years of never getting to call one?
You know, I'm going to tell you something, Jack. For years, I would be going on as a guest when Angelo Cataldi on WIP would call me. I go on by phone from time to time during the season, and he always said to me, Merrill, there's one thing I want. After you doing the games all these years, I would love to see the Eagles win a Super Bowl for you because you deserve it. And I would tell Angelo the truth. If the Eagles never won a Super Bowl, they owe me nothing. I am broadcasting NFL football. There is nothing I would rather do in the world than broadcast Eagles football. I mean, I am a passionate golfer. And if somebody said to me, would you rather play Augusta National, where play the Masters, or broadcast an Eagles game? I'd say, I'd rather broadcast an Eagles game than do anything else in the world. So I have been thrilled. I've done miracles in the Meadowlands. I've done great plays, great games. I've done so many of them. They didn't owe me a thing. But I would say, and I meant this, I want the Eagles to win a Super Bowl for the fans, for the people who take second mortgages so they can buy season tickets, who spend their last dollar at Christmas to give their kids Eagles shirts, jerseys, things like that. I really wanted it for the fans. And I'm not saying that it didn't mean a lot to me, because it did, and I'm proud of it, and I rejoiced, and I loved every second of it. And I never wrote what I would say or planned what I would say when it occurred. But when it did occur, and I saw that final Brady pass go incomplete, and I looked up at the clock and I saw nothing but zeros, and I said, the Eagles have won Super Bowl 52, or whatever I said. And then I just said, Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration begin. It came from my heart. And that's what I meant. I meant it. It meant so much to me because it meant so much to all of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Merrill, if people want to follow you online or be able to connect with you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Well, I do tweet.
Okay.
That's the
Nice.
best way.
Okay, what's your Twitter handle? If you don't know, it's okay.
What's my Twitter handle? I don't know.
I'm in the process of looking it up right now. So give me.
You can find it. I do tweet. I'm out there. I do tweet.
We have several people asking, do you have your Super Bowl ring handy? Is it around you anywhere?
Well, wait a minute. Cindy, can you bring down my Super Bowl ring? Can you bring down my Super Bowl ring? My wonderful wife is going to bring down my Super Bowl ring.
Awesome.
I have to tell you the truth. I don't wear it. I really don't. It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's much too glitzy for me. And plus, when I wear it, and somebody because they ask me to wear it every now and then at a sales dinner or a sponsor event or a Hall of Fame day. And if you wear this thing and someone shakes your hand, although no one's going to be shaking hands for a while, it kills my knuckles.
Yeah.
It's that big and cumbersome.
Your Twitter handle is Reese Eagles.
Reese Eagles.
Reese Eagles.
That's good to know.
Yes. So everybody's telling Cindy thank you. So Cindy, thank you for bringing that down. Merrill, we're going to wrap up. My email, I knew that is mreeseeagles@gmail.com. Okay. Well, there you go, everybody. And do not bombard Merrill with that.
I know that. But Cindy is bringing down that ring in 1 second. You have a second?
Yes, we do. So Merrill, while we're waiting for this 1 second, we've been asking our speakers to just give us like their final words of encouragement or their keys to life. We just asked them to keep it to like 30 seconds. And, what is the lasting thing you want to leave with our students and our visitors today?
Well, that you're all bright, that you're going to a fine university, that you're learning a lot of things about not only the subject matter, but you're learning a lot of things about life. And that if you want something badly enough, you can achieve it. I mean, I'll tell you, I used to say, my mother once said, if you reach for the moon, at least if you reach for the stars, at least you'll hit the moon, or something like that. But if you can dream it, you can be it. Yeah. Here is the Super Bowl ring. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can. Oh wow, yeah, that looks great.
That is it. Has my name on the side. Has a zillion diamonds, and I haven't seen it in a while, but this is what it looks like. But you know what? It's great. It's a great memory, and it's wonderful to have this. But the real prize of the Super Bowl is in here and in my heart. That's what I love so much. The ring is a ring and it's a great treasure, but material things don't make the Super Bowl special.
Absolutely, absolutely. Merrill Reese, everybody. Merrill, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, and I wish you all the very, very best.